Hello everyone. I decided to record this video to talk about some of my experiences. And I know it's a little bit non-traditional since we're a writing-based class, but I thought that recording a video would give you a little bit more of an idea about the way these things have impacted me. I am a storyteller. I am a literature major. I quite literally study the story. So I find that emotion is the most important thing in a story. You can't have a real story unless it includes emotion. And I find that the best way to include emotion is by having something to see and to hear. So usually I start and stop a lot because I'm not the most comfortable in front of a camera, but I'm going to try to not do that because I want you to see me and I want you to be able to hear my story and see all of my pauses and my gestures and things like see my emotion because that is what this is about. So I'm going to first elaborate on some of my experiences when I was younger. I don't remember a lot of them. I had one of those stereotypical American childhoods where that they was shown like the old movies where the children spend their summers in Florida with their grandparents. Yeah, my great grandmother lived in Vero Beach, Florida, and every summer I would go for uh, up to 2 months at a time and just stay with her on the beach. Usually my parents were with me, or at least my mom was when my dad was working. My dad would fly down for a week or so. And then when my brother was born, we kept doing it. But then when my sister was born, we stopped because it became too expensive. Because flights are expensive. Actually, we stopped going down regularly in 2001 because after 9/11, the prices of plane tickets skyrocketed. And so then after that, things kind of slowed down. And then in fourth grade, or in between third and fourth grade, I moved from Columbus, Ohio to Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania. Now, Columbus, Ohio, of course, is a city. It's a huge city. Well, not as big as Phoenix, but it's a pretty big city. And Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania has a population of 12,000. So it was a very big change. And I am an introvert and not very good at being in social settings. So it was very difficult for me, especially that young, because it took me a while to figure out where I fit in, and I hadn't really figured it out yet in Ohio, so having to start over was very difficult for me. But this new setting really affected my literacy in many ways because central Pennsylvania has a very specific dialect that you probably don't know exists unless you've been there. And it's really funny because I would literally even in a school setting, like sometimes people would just be talking and I literally had no idea what they were talking about. One good example is the word crick. People in Pennsylvania use the word crick, meaning creek, and it is the I don't know. It's hilarious, I guess. But I had no idea what it meant when I was in fourth grade. So I was in a class and we were talking about a creek, but my teacher kept saying crick, and I literally had no idea what she's talking about. So, probably wondering how that actually affects my literacy. It's the fact that I am able to pick up on dialects really quickly now, and I'm able to kind of figure out what people are saying. Not always. Some of the ones I haven't come into contact with I can't, but I had to quickly adapt to adjusting to this new dialect that you wouldn't think would affect students in a school setting, yet it did. So, also, my dialect is kind of weird because I lived in so many places. I speak like, you know, whatever proper English or standard American English, but sometimes I'll just say things and people will just be like, how did you pronounce that? like um, I say Carnegie Hall because Andrew Carnegie was from, well, he's from the UK, but he lived in Pittsburgh, and everybody in Pittsburgh says Carnegie. The rest of the United States says Carnegie. I don't know why, but his name was Andrew Carnegie. So just little things like that, and I just say it, and people just look at me, and I'm just like, yeah. And then in sixth grade, I got to travel to Berlin with my Odyssey of the Mind team. That was a fantastic experience. That was my very first time going somewhere without my parents. I was completely alone. I mean, I wasn't alone, I had my teammates, but yeah, and I got to see firsthand a different culture, different language. We went to a school in Germany. So when I was in sixth grade, I went to high school in Germany. It was a wild experience. I just think about that sometimes. I just remember being so overwhelmed by it all because their system, although we went to a gymnasium, which is basically the same as our high school, but the way that their system is, they split it up into the three different parts, and that creates it's what sets up their school system and creates the different levels. The gymnasium goes through 13th year, although they're starting to change that and do 12 years like we do. But yeah, so that affected my literacy because, literacy has a lot to do with reading and writing, but it also just has to do with communication and learning in general. So when I was 11 years old, I was exposed to a new language. I started learning German in sixth grade, even though I didn't actively keep up with it until I actually took German in high school. But I started using online things. I would research words. I would write down vocabulary words. I would talk to people while I was there, and they would teach me different words. So although I didn't have a strong grasp on the language in any way, shape, or form until high school, it led to me eventually learning it, and now I'm majoring in it. So it very much impacted my literacy because I can now read and write in German. So I'm now, as far as literacy goes, bilingual. I'm technically not bilingual. I'm only conversational in German, but yeah. So, and then another big thing are my exchange programs that I did directly related to that. Is my junior year of high school, I was in, a German student came and stayed with me, so then she learned about our school system. She went to school with me for 4 weeks, and then she would teach me German, and I would teach her English. She was fluent in English because they start learning English in kindergarten. But we were able to communicate and learn a lot about each other's cultures, and then in the summer I went and stayed with her, and it was a similar situation, just the reverse. So I got to learn a lot more about German then and German culture. And then last summer I actually did 4 weeks in Regensburg, Germany, where I took language classes. So I actually got to take German language classes in Germany. So it was like German as a second language versus German as a foreign language, similar to the TESOL versus TEFL, but it was German. So it was very interesting, and it really gave me a different view on how language learning works. And just in those 4 weeks, I became a much better German speaker than I had at any point the 6 months leading up to that. So it was absolutely just a phenomenal experience. And if you're thinking about learning a language, I definitely recommend doing one of ASU's language full immersion programs. They are phenomenal, and you will be shocked at how much you learn. So I guess bringing all that back to now and to this literacy narrative, I have a very global perspective on things now because I have traveled a lot. I've met people from all over the world. Through Odyssey of the Mind, I talked about how I went to Germany, but we also had students from Poland stay with us. I've met students from Russia, Belarus, China, all all over the place. And on my last study abroad that I did over the summer, I had class with people from Brazil, Portugal, India, Ethiopia, France, just amazing things. So I have a very global perspective, and I also understand. I find that I am more able to grasp differing opinions now than I was before. Because I'm kind of an opinionated person. I try not to be, but I have my like when I believe in something, it's like really strong. Like politics and all that stuff. I get kind of emotional over it. But I found that before I started, before my study abroads, I was very set on this, and I couldn't understand people who thought differently. I just couldn't understand how their minds work, how they could possibly think that way. And although I still sometimes think like that, I'm more able to stop and think about it in a more roundabout way. Say, what is this person's background? What is their religious beliefs, etc., etc.? What could have happened that made them think that way? And it really helps me to approach conversations in a more unbiased way. Would that conversation be reading, writing, or an actual speaking conversation? And yes, and it really has helped me, I find, especially when I am doing peer reviews or I'm grading or anything like that, or when I'm helping students and they're maybe writing about something that I don't agree with, I am able to step back and use that same tactic that I used to talk to the people in my classes when I was in Germany and think, okay, this is different than what I think, but that doesn't necessarily mean that this person, that it doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong, and that I'm able to kind of approach it from that global perspective that did help me to communicate while abroad. And all of this has really impacted me and what I want to do in the future, because I've been struggling with that for a while. I've been looking at, because I had been considering teaching English just because of other languages for so long that I just assumed that's what I wanted to do. And then I realized about 2 weeks ago that that's not what I want to do, and that I actually want to be some form of storyteller. I haven't really figured out what that means yet. That I've looked into getting a job with a company like Disney that is like all about storytelling, like that is their thing. That would be cool, doing something in the entertainment industry, not necessarily like directly, but more on like a side job, like, you know, project management, or like, I don't know, advertising, marketing, stuff like that. Something that allows me to tell a story, because I think that storytelling is the most important thing that we have. It's our most important tool, and it helps us learn more about each other, more about ourselves, more about the world, and that is why I love my job as a writing mentor, because I'm able to help with that. These students are able to find their voices so that they can become storytellers. And we all need to be some form of storyteller. I think that it will definitely help us understand each other a little bit more, and then we can see more of the emotion and the meaning behind all the conflicts that we have. If we're all storytellers, we're able to all talk it out and figure out what is going wrong and what we need to do to fix it. So that kind of turned into a rant, but I hope that it added at least something to this narrative. Thanks for watching.